Captain Robert Salas, can you introduce yourself for us?
My name is Robert Salas. I was in the Air Force from 1964 until 1971 when I resigned. During that time, I was involved with missiles, nuclear missiles primarily, but I also was a propulsion engineer on the Titan II program, which was another missile used to put up satellites in orbit. After my time in the Air Force, I worked for 20 years for the United States government, and in the Federal Aviation Administration, I was working as a structural engineer on aircraft for the Federal Aviation Administration. So I've had nearly 35 years experience with the United States government working in the government. And now I've been speaking about my UFO story for almost 20 years now.
How many countries have you visited talking about this experience?
Many countries. I spoke in England, United Kingdom, France, Peru, Argentina, Brazil. Let's see, I think that's most of the foreign countries besides the United States. Yes.
And what happened with you and your group, your staff in the 60s with UFOs?
So in 1967, I was a missile launch officer. I controlled 10 nuclear missiles. This was my duty. In case we're given the order, we would launch nuclear weapons to our enemies, whoever our enemies were at the time. Of course, we knew the Soviet Union and China, communist countries were our enemies in 1967. We were fighting the Vietnam War. And so on this evening, on March 24th, 1967, I received first a phone call saying that my guards were seeing strange lights in the sky, flying very fast, making strange maneuvers back and forth up, and no noise, no engine noise. They didn't think they were aircraft. And so I didn't pay much attention, but then the next call, they were very frightened on the telephone. They screaming into the phone that they were seeing this red oval-shaped object. It was about, I'd say 40, 50 feet long. It was pulsating red light, and it was just sitting above the front gate. They were frightened. They had their weapons, their rifles out, ready to shoot at it. They wanted me to give them orders, and I told them not to allow anything inside the fenced area. So shoot if you have to, but don't let it inside. I didn't know what was happening. I thought it might have been some kind of an attack. I just didn't know. This was new. This was something new, something amazing. So he hung up the phone, and I went to tell my commander. And then my missiles, we had a panel that showed the control of the missiles, and they were all ready to launch, but now they all stopped, disabled. They could not be used. So we lost all 10 nuclear missiles while this UFO was above us. And then we found out later that evening that the same thing happened at another location a week earlier. So we actually lost 20 missiles during UFO sightings over the missiles. I had to sign an agreement, my signature, that I would never speak about this. This was secret, and so I didn't speak about it until many, many years later, in 1994, when I thought the Air Force had declassified the incident. I asked the Air Force to send me documents about this incident. I didn't say anything about UFOs. I just asked for documents about this story that I heard. And they said, okay, it's classified, but we're going to declassify it now and send you documents. So they started sending me documents, It was declassified. One of the incidents was declassified. And so I thought, oh, this is my incident. So I started speaking publicly in conventions and also on television, on radio. But later I found out I was not at this place, I was at another place. But, so I kept speaking.
And when you read the documents they sent to you, was it very precise, talking about what happened, or it was a little bit different?
Actually, the Air Force never discovered exactly what happened. They did at least two investigations. One was done by the Boeing company, and the Boeing company, I talked to the team leader of the Boeing company that did the investigation for them, and he told me that they looked at everything. They looked at all the equipment. They looked at the possibility that we did something, you know, to fool with the equipment, but they could find no reason for the missiles to shut down the way they did. Very specifically, a signal was sent from this object, a specific signal, through the earth and concrete of the underground capsule and through the triple shielded cables that went to each missile, and they sent a signal to shut down the guidance and control system that guided the missile on flight.
It burned it or just disabled it?
It did not burn anything, it did not destroy anything, it just sent, it upset the guidance system because we had inertial navigation equipment, which depends on the location of the missile to determine where it is located. So no damage. The UFO did not destroy our missiles. It simply disabled them so they could not be launched.
How many time would it take to organize all these things again to be able to launch?
Yes, it took probably a day, maybe a little longer. We had to send people out to each missile, and we had to shoot location with the stars. You know, we had to find the stars and locate the missile. This was before GPS, no GPS. So it took about a day to bring all the missiles back up. So.
And how many nuclear heads did you have in your arsenal in that time, and how was the power of these heads?
The nuclear warheads were approximately 800 kilotons of TNT. In perspective, the bomb at Hiroshima and Nagasaki was about 10 to 15 kilotons. Our warheads were single warheads, but later on they became multiple warheads, and now they're back to singular warheads, single bombs in each warhead. We had 10 missiles in our launch control facility, but we had many more. We had about 15 launch control facilities, so we had at least 150 nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. And then, of course, there are other bases in the United States. At that time, there were at least 5 or 6 other nuclear intercontinental ballistic missile bases in the United States.
In case of war, you were the man that would push the button.
Turn the key.
Turn the key.
Yes. Yes. My commander and I had the ability to turn the key to launch weapons. Yes, very serious.
Can you talk about other similar cases with other militaries, even in other countries?
Yes. In fact, in the Soviet Union in 1982, they had a UFO sighting over a nuclear missile. In fact, they started the missile on a launch sequence. So it appeared to them, the men on the ground, that the missile was going to actually launch, because they could see that. But they had a way of stopping the launch. Other cases, in the United States, of course, we had incidents in Minot Air Force Base, North Dakota, in 1966. Very similar case to my own. In September of 1966, one of the witnesses that just testified in Washington, D.C., David Schindele, talked about relieving a crew that had their missiles disabled, all 10 disabled, during a UFO event similar to mine, although they have not come forward publicly as we have. And there were cases again in 1975 at Malmstrom Air Force Base again, bases in South Dakota and in Wyoming. This has happened many times. I showed a listing of many cases that are very similar to this.
And why has your story been kept secret for all this time?
Yes, that's an interesting question. My story in particular happened at a time when the Air Force was investigating UFOs through a group from the University of Colorado called the Condon investigation, because Edward Condon was the leader of this investigation. But it was a cover-up. The reason the Air Force wanted to do this was simply to keep the public from stop the public from asking questions about UFOs. So the Condon investigation wasn't truly a scientific investigation. It was simply a way to cover up the idea that UFOs did exist and were affecting our nuclear weapons. And our story happened at that time during this investigation. So the Air Force kept our story from the Condon committee or investigation. They wouldn't allow them to see their reports or talk to me, for example, and other people. They didn't allow interviews. So it was clearly what we call a whitewash or cover-up to keep it secret. The Air Force wants to keep it secret because obviously there are military applications from the technology. If they could develop, copy the technology and fly at fantastic speeds and go very far to other places in the universe, then this is very important technology that they want to use for military applications, right? So that's part of the reason they keep it secret. The other reasons have to do with greed and power, because of course this information is very powerful. It can be used, for example, to make deals with other countries, because obviously these cases have happened in many other countries, and they can exchange information secretly with other countries and make deals. You know, you give me this, I'll give you this. I think that's going on in the intelligence community.
Do you think those objects had tripulants, had crew, and they are extraterrestrials?
Absolutely, absolutely. I know a lot of people waffle about that idea of extraterrestrials, but there's no question that these objects were not constructed on Earth because of their performance and what they were able to do. You understand, they understood our weapon systems, our missiles, very accurately. They knew exactly how they worked. There's another story in my book about a man who was working on the missiles, and UFO came over and knew exactly what he was doing to work on the missile.
When they sent signal, it was like a light or invisible sign, like the radio frequency signal.
Probably invisible. I know many times UFOs fly over nuclear bases. They shine a beam of light, and but I think this is just to show people that are seeing this that they're interested in our nuclear weapons. They want to see us abolish our nuclear weapons or get rid of, take out our nuclear weapons. So that's been seen many times as beam of light. But in this case, there was no beam of light. It was simply an invisible signal, very, very specific signal.
Did they interfere in any launch, experimental launch? Did you see UFOs interfering and fall, making the rocket fall?
Yes, this was an incident in 1964. Actually, it was an Atlas missile that was shot from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. They actually took video of the reentry vehicle, what we call the reentry vehicle. That's where the bomb is located. But this was a dummy, not a real bomb, but just a pretend reentry vehicle. And then in the photo, you can see the UFO flying. This reentry vehicle is flying maybe 10,000, 15,000 miles per hour. And the UFO is flying around it like this and shooting beams at it to take it off course so it did not land on the target, and it took it off course. So again, they were demonstrating that they could, if necessary, interfere with our launching nuclear weapons.
Why the extraterrestrials were analyzing and checking their capability and showing their capability of interfering in our nuclear weapons? What is the main reason for this?
Okay, this is my opinion, and I think it was basically, what happened to me was basically a message that we should get rid of our nuclear weapons. And again, it's not just my story, but many other stories similar to mine, and the same message: get rid of your nuclear weapons, abolish all nuclear weapons, because it is possible we could have a nuclear war and simply destroy everything.
Captain Robert Salas, thank you very much for your interview.
Thank you, Wilson. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.